Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Advisory. This is the second part of our memory lesson. And for this lesson, we're going to go over a technique used to remember things called regeneration. Okay. So I can read an entire chapter. I usually read at night before I go to bed, right? And I can read an entire chapter, and the next day I will have totally forgotten what I read. Okay. So I can't even tell you the amount of times I've started to be like, oh, I really love this book. And they're like, what's it about? And I'm like, and what I've learned about myself is that I have to immediately share what I'm reading as I'm reading. Like after I'm done with a chapter, I either have to talk about it or write it down, because otherwise my brain, it'll just go right in and out, right? And I have to consciously work through in my brain what it is I read before I can articulate it to somebody. That's just how my brain works. I know that's not how everybody's brain works, but it's helpful to either write down important points, or just like I said, just have that conversation with somebody. Oh, I really like this part of this book, and that helps it stick a little bit more. So we already talked about mnemonics a little bit. Well, in that video we talked about mnemonics as being like a strategy. This is regeneration. Okay, we're going to talk about what that is. So let's say you need to remember that Madison is the capital of Wisconsin. So you have two options. You could read in your notes that Madison is the capital of Wisconsin and hope that you remember it in the test. Okay, just read it and you're like, okay. Or you can try to remember the capital of Wisconsin by looking at your note without looking at your notes. So the first option is easier. You can just look at your notes for the answer, but you will probably forget what you read when you do not have your notes and you can't refer to them. You don't always have the ability to refer to your notes. Maybe you're taking a test, you can't look at your notes, right? So you got to get to a place where you can remember it without relying on looking at your notes, right? So the second option is what we call regeneration. So it is when you force yourself to remember an answer without looking at your notes or any clues. So you have to generate that answer on your own. So it takes more effort, right? But it has been proven to be a very effective study technique, which is why they people use flashcards, which we'll talk in this lesson as well. So if you created 50 flashcards with the state name on the front and the state capital on the back, you can organize them into 3 piles: know, kind of know, and don't know. So when you're using flashcards, essentially if you look at the word and you're like, okay, Madison, and you're trying to think about what the capital is, you don't flip it over until you know, right? That's the idea of regeneration. So you could always say Madison. Oh, Madison, Wisconsin. Perfect. I got it. But if it's to know that it's truly there is to see the state. Okay, it's Wisconsin, and thinking about what this capital might be before you turn over that flashcard. Okay. And you can organize it as you go through your flashcards for know, kind of know, and don't know. This is great for any vocabulary that you're learning. Sometimes you could do it with math formulas, okay, very basic math formulas. This is a great technique. So that's what regeneration is. Sometimes when I'm sitting with at night, watching TV or something, and we're like, oh, who is that actress? Ooh, what else is she in? I always encourage my husband to not look it up, because I'm like, when you remember it, because sometimes it just comes to you randomly out of the blue, right? And when you remember it on your own, it's so much more rewarding, and you're actually you're exercising your brain. Okay, so that's just an example. Sometimes we're all quick to look up the answers for things, but if we sit and think, sometimes it'll just come to us, and that's actually much more. That's just better for our brain in general. Okay, so remember the governor. Technique 1. Read the chapter about the governor, then write a short paragraph summarizing the important facts about him. Summarizing ideas in your own words has been proven to increase memory connections. So this is a technique. So if you're trying to remember all the details about the governor, you read the chapter, you write a paragraph after you read the chapter, and then you summarize it after the fact. So then you're using your brain to put things into your own words, and this has been proven to improve those connections in your memory, okay? So that's a technique. Writing a paragraph, summarizing. Instead of just like me reading at night and then just forgetting it all the next day, this is a great way for me to remember the important points that I want to share. This is another technique. So create a short quiz about the governor. So take the quiz a week later. So as you're going through and reading all the things, you can write like, what is his name? Where is he from? Like all the important facts that you learn that you're supposed to remember for the test, writing your own little quiz. So a week later you can take that quiz and see if those memories are actually embedded in your head. You will make more memory connections by identifying these key points and then recalling them later. Okay, this is another technique. So you can like write a little paragraph. You can take a quiz a week later, create your own quiz. Okay, so we talked about flashcards. Flashcards are a great regeneration tool because you could see the questions on one side and you have to come up with the answer on your own. Okay, so then if you don't come up with the answer, you flip it over and you're like, that's right. Okay, so so that's the flashcards, and then we have use regeneration. Regeneration can happen in many ways. You can use the flashcards, you could use the quizzes, you could use the summaries. And it will cut like a deeper path into your memories than just reading something and hoping that you remember it, okay? These are just ways that we can be like, oh, am I getting this material as I'm reading it? These are like ways to check yourself, okay? So regeneration, again, is harder than just looking at a word and hoping to memorize it with zero effort, right? But when you practice it, your brain gets smarter and stronger because you're challenging it all the time, okay? If you're looking up everything on Google every time you have a question pop into your brain, you're not exercising your brain muscles, okay? So with this reflection, what does regeneration mean? And maybe not just what does it mean, but what are some ways to use this skill or this technique that we went over in this lesson? You could talk about it as a class. You could write it down in a journal, whatever you'd like. What is regeneration? What did we talk about today? Were you listening? See you guys next time.